Thank you very much.
It's hot.
Thank you. Okay. So we're on Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph and Mishnah. Again, just a general Hakdama that it's a hard Masechta, not the actual learning, but the application, because the Mishnah has different halachas, and there's a Gemara that says Hilchas Moed Akuros. They cannot allow to learn from one to the other, and we have no choice but to learn from one another because we don't have the same cases that the Gemara has. We don't have the same Metzias as they had, and the poskim, the Rishonim already, they tried to extract Klalim, and the Klalim are pretty simple, but the difficulty is just fitting in each case of the Gemara into the mold. So it's not so simple, but that's what Rishonim did l'chora because of lack of another option. But we'll learn the halachas, and there is something to take out of it, but there is difficulty in the applications. So what we're going to do usually is just take the Klalim that we have and fit the cases into the mold. And a Maisa Hedjed is more to a Tzarech HaMoed, then a Maisa Uman, if it's Tover Ove, it's going to be more even if it's a Maisa Uman, we'll see. But there is difficulty in all of the difficult the particular cases. The Mishnah says, also Makala Gagol or Mepesas Maisa Hedjed Avalon Maisa Uman. You're allowed to make a Makkah. Makkah is a fence, as we know, and you're allowed to make a fence around for a rooftop or for a Mepesas, that is some kind of a balcony. But only a Maisa Hedjed, not a Maisa Uman. And we're going to say it's talking about Tzarech HaMoed. The Mishnah doesn't say. We're going to say Tzarech HaMoed. You need it for the Moed. And it's mutter to do Tzarech HaMoed only if it's an amateur case, not if it's professional. Shafan es hasdak, new Mishnah. Shafan es hasdak nu magila noisen b'magela b'yadu b'regal avlo b'mechalatzayim. So here they say that it's talking. Rashi says it's talking about a tunnel, but the more simple pshat is like other Rishonim. They say that it's a roof. He's fixing his roof. So it says that you're allowed to smear the cracks with some kind of tar, obviously. Or magila no simba magela. So a magela is some kind of a tool, a round kind of a tool, a rolling pin kind of a thing that you would l'chora use to to tar the roof. So at this point, it says you're allowed to use a magela, you're allowed to use this tool. Just to point out, when they say choni ma'agel, everyone knows the choni ma'agel is because he made a circle. But the Pashup Pshat was that he was a roofer. Choni ma'agel, he was choni the roofer. Like it says here, magela, choni ma'agel. But they called him Choni Amagel because of that story. Also, they called him because of the story that he made a circle. But the Pashup Pshat over there, I think, would be a nice pshat that he was a roofer. But anyway, it says, Magila Rosa b'Magela b'Yado b'Regel avalo b'Mechalatzayim. So there's two tools over here. L'chora, the Magela is a tool, and the Mechalatzayim is a tool. And the words would read l'chora that you're allowed to use this kind of tool, but you can't use the very professional tool. But the Gemara is going to say differently. It says here in the middle also b'Yado b'Regel, which means with your hand and with your foot. So that the Gemara is going to see that it means you're just allowed to use your hand and feet, and you can't use any kind of a tools. So that's going to be the Gemara's kasha. Then on one hand it says you could use a magela. On the other hand it says biyadu v'regel, which means that you use your hand and your foot. That's no tool at all. So why would it have to say that you can use this kind of a tool? Why does it say you could use a tool? You can't use a tool. You could only use a hand and a foot. So that's going to be a question in the Gemara. We'll see how the Gemara learns. Mechalatzayim seems to be a more professional tool, but we'll see also that might not be true. A mechalatzayim might be coming out that it's just a trowel, and it's not a very professional tool. And that's how we'll see later on. That's what it means. From the Mishnah alone, it's hard to tell. You might learn in the Mishnah that mechalatzayim is a more of a professional tool than the magela, because it says you can use a magela and you can use a mechalatzayim. But we'll see in the Gemara, things are going to change around. First wide line, hatzir, v'hatzinor, v'kora, v'amano, v'mafteach, shenishbu. All these things, if it broke, it doesn't say when it broke. You're going to see now that it seems to have been broke even before the yantiv. Hatzir is a hinge, not the hinge that we have nowadays. It's more the hinge that we have it also nowadays. But here the Gemara's tzir would mean that on top and the bottom of the door there'd be some kind of a peg that comes out and it went into the floor. So and into the lintel of the top of the door. So the tzir is that protruding hinge, and a tzinor is going to be the pipe, the piece of metal that goes that the tzir fits into in the floor, and also there's one on top on the door, and that's where the hinge fits into. A korah would be a beam. Rashi says it means maybe the beam of the lintel. Maybe it means also the korah of the house. The Rashi Ksaviyat says a manal maftech, the lock and the key. All these things, if they got broken, shenishbru metakten b'moed. You're allowed to fix it on the chol moed. But you can't direct that the word mechavein, that you shouldn't make that it should come out to fix it on the moed. It means if broke, this thing broke, they broke before yantif. If it broke during chol moed, during chol moed, surely you're allowed to fix it. But even if it broke beforehand, it's also you're allowed to fix it on chol moed, but only provided that you didn't delay and postpone until chol moed. If you had it you were busy before Yantif. Yeah, it broke before Yantif, but you were busy, you couldn't get to it. So then you're allowed to do it on Chol Hamoed. But if you Dafka left it for Chol Hamoed, I'll have time then. Why should I do it now on a busy day? I'm working now. I'll wait until Chol Hamoed, have a day off. I won't be able to work anyway. Then I'll fix it. Then you're not allowed to do it. Means it might even be a double of it, maybe. It might be a double of it, but it's not mutter if you planned it to come out on Chol Hamoed. And the next halacha about kivashin. The whole kivashin shehu yachal lachal man b'moed kovshan. Talking about pickling things. The word kovesh means to pickle. So you're allowed to pickle things, but only if you'll be able to eat it on the chol hamoed. If it's not going to be ready until after Yom Tov, so then don't do it now. You're not allowed to do malach on ma'aseh hedyot. You can't do only if it's going to be edible and usable on Yom Tov. But if it's only going to be usable after Yom Tov, you're not allowed to. Just to point out, yesterday I left out something yesterday that I didn't realize that there is a heter. Yesterday it says something about the oven. I had a little dochak yesterday when I said the Gemara last night, and it says here that you're allowed to make an oven. And then of course you say that even this professional oven, which is a ma'aseh uman, and I would have thought that according to the regular clothes.
We sit on the right.
What is that?
So we sit on the right.
That's what I'm correcting. I'm correcting what I said last night. That I said that a Tanur, it must be that it's only, but it doesn't sound like that because the Gemara says he was Ami Tanura. He must have been he's an oven maker. So he doesn't make amateur ovens. So the Farshim say that maybe it's mutter because it's Ochel Nefesh. Even though he's another klal comes in by Hilchos Chol Hamoed that the ma'aseh hedyot is mutter l'tzorach hamoed, but that's only if it's not for food. But if it's for food, it's even mutter ma'aseh uman. So that's how they explain why you'd be allowed to make the oven on Chol Hamoed, even if it's a ma'aseh uman, since it's Ochel Nefesh. But then they go back and they say, but before it said about the nets, you only net the fish net, but not a bird net, because this is my said that this is my suman. You have to say that's not considered Ochel Nefesh, which I don't have clarity on that. Why should not be Ochel Nefesh? It's not so clear anymore.
One kind of food, and the oven is everything.
I don't see the difference. If Ochel Nefesh is mutter, Ochel Nefesh is mutter. Okay, so we have now the question. The end of the Mishnah said about pickles, so you're allowed to make pickles, even if it be ma'aseh uman, I would imagine, because it's for food. But it says only if it provided that's going to be usable on the moed, but if it's not going to be ready till after Yom Tov, you will be allowed to. So we go back to the beginning of the Mishnah. Spoke about a ma'akeh. Also in ma'akeh, you're allowed to make a fence for a roof or for a mepeset, only on ma'aseh hedyot. Baitz ma'aseh hedyot. Rav Yosef Mabusa v'dafna v'nasi satan l'tzar b'tzor b'enatach b'tip. We had similarly this Gemara a few pages ago when it also spoke about making a kind of mekorin, making a tikra kier. So it said putza v'dafna is kind of leaves. You just make it out of leaves and stuff. Branches, leaves, that's your whole fence. You can't make a ma'aseh uman. And another case of a ma'aseh hedyot of a fence, that you could just put the stones, but you can't put any cement. You just pile up the stones to become the fence, but you can't put cement in between. So, what does it say that a ma'akeh, you're allowed to make a ma'aseh hedyot? We'll say that it's tzorach hamoed. You need it for the you need it, but it's not the davar of it or anything. So then you'd be allowed to make it amateur kind of a fence. The Mishnah continued about taking care of your roof. That there's a leak probably, and you're fixing the roof. So it says shafan es asdak, and you're allowed to smear the cracks. So magila no sabah magela. And the Mishnah said you're allowed to use this tool called a magela. Then it also said yad v'regel. That was the difficulty. That it said your hand and your feet. Hand and your feet. It says you're allowed to use a magela. So surely you're allowed to use your hand and your feet. If you read the Mishnah the way we did, so it's very difficult. It says you're allowed to use a tool. You're allowed to use your hand and your feet. So what does that mean? So it comes out, it's very the opposite shot of the Mishnah. The Mishnah seems to read that you're allowed to use this kind of tool. You can use a magela and you could use your hands and your feet. But it says no. If it says you can use your hands and your feet, it means you can't use a magela. So what does it mean that you could use a magela? No, it doesn't mean that. It means you're allowed to use your hands and your feet and even do a very good job. That someone looks at it and says, wow, you must have had this magela tool. He says, no, I did it by hands and feet. That's okay. You could do it with your hands and feet, even though it looks like it was done by a magela. But you can't use a magela. You can't use a mechlat tzayim. A mechlat tzayim is not a fancy tool. A mechlat tzayim is a trowel, and it's less than a magela. But it means you only could use your hands and your feet. You can't use a tool. You can't even use a simple tool. You can't even use a mechlat tzayim. If you want to fix the roof, you only could use your hands and your feet. And even if it looks professional, that's okay. But it has to be done only with your hands and your feet. And you can't use a trowel. You can't use any kind of a tool, even though you're not going to use this magela. You can't use a mechlat tzayim. You only can use hands and feet that look like a magela, that look like the result came out like you did a professional tool. But you can't use any kind of a tool. You can't even use a trowel.
What does this magela do? I don't understand.
We said it's kind of a tool. Maybe it looks like a rolling pin of some sort that you would be rolling out the tar on the roof. and that's a professional tool. The Mishnah seems to say you are allowed to use it, but the Gemara comes out that you're not allowed to use it. You only could use your hands and your feet. And even if it looks like a professional result, that's okay. But you can't use any kind of a tool, not even a trowel. Next, Mishnah said, that was all the Mishnah that says that all these things that broke, you're allowed to fix them on moed. And the Gemara's kasha is going to be that these things, in order to fix them, we said the hinge and the pipe that the hinge goes into, and the beam, the lock, the key. And the Gemara thinks that for these things, you need a hammer to fix them. That's the Pashup Pshat that it seems that you need a hammer. The Gemara is asking kasha that it says in Mishnah that you're not allowed to use a hammer on moed. For a minute, it says until the days of Yochanan Kohen Gadol, the hammer was banging in Yerushalayim, and he made at the kind of no more hammers. And the pshat seems to be because it's a zilzul for the Chol HaMoed that it should be banging here, a hammer banging. And the more seems to ask that over here also you have to have noise in order to make to fix these things. You need a hammer, and you're not allowed to have a hammer banging. That seems to be the kasha. Ad Yamavin, we can't only till Yochanan Kohen Gadol, but afterwards he made a takana that you're not allowed to use a hammer. So how come the Mishnah says you're allowed to fix these things? You need a hammer. So there's a couple of terutzim we have here highlighted 1, 2, 3, 4 terutzim. The first teretz is, and some of them are going to be knocked off. The first one's going to be knocked off. The rest of them we have after that a couple of terutzim. Lo kasha. Kan with the nafchi, kan with the nigri. A nafchi is a blacksmith and a nagri is a carpenter. And the Gemara seems to say that it's only a problem if you're using blacksmith's hammer, makes a lot of noise, but the nagri, carpenter's hammer, doesn't make so much noise, so it's permissible. Even though Yochanan Kohen Gadol made it to not to have a hammer as used on Chol HaMoed, that's only one that makes a lot of noise. But one that doesn't make so much noise is permissible. But if Chisda doesn't like this, they're going to say that a loud noise is usher and a small noise is mutter. They don't like to make such kind of chilukim. It's not good to make a law which is too flexible. Elam Rav Chisda, not a terrorist. Two different kinds of a tool, and the question is what these tools are. Some say that it's some kind of maybe axe, and the point of this is what some unfortunately seem to say. So we'll say this chat that you're not allowed to bang. You could, if you have to bang, you wouldn't be able to. No difference if it's a hammer or it's going to be an axe. Things that are banging, you're not allowed to use. But a mangal is just a saw. A saw you'd be allowed to use, even though it doesn't. It's a zilzal for Chol HaMoed. They hear the saw also, but maybe it's not as big a zilzal as having a hammer. That's what it seems to be. We'll see 2 more lines. Maybe it's not going to be relevant to halacha. But here it says 2 different kinds of a tool. A mangal is a saw of some sort, and a chatzini is some kind of an axe. And it could be that the point is that banging, you're not allowed to bang. Makah Patish or a chatzini is also kind of an axe. You have to bang, that's us. But a magla is just going to be a saw, even though it also makes some kind of a noise. Rashi says maybe it makes no noise at all. But even if it makes some kind of a noise, but it's still mutter because it's not a bang. A third terrace, or second terrace, whichever one. You're right, that our Mishnah says you're allowed to fix all these things, but only before the takana of Yochanan Kohen Gadol. But Yochanan Kohen Gadol made a takana not to use a hammer, so you can't fix these things anymore. This Mishnah was an old Mishnah, but later on, the updated Mishnah would say that you're not allowed to. The last teretz of Rashi, that's the how we paskin that this issue of Yochanan Kohen Gadol is really machlokes, and Rav Yossi doesn't hold of it. Rav Yossi holds that davar of it, you're allowed to even use a hammer, it makes noise, and we're going to see today, and the other side of the page, we're going to see the next parak. And the Gemara sees from there that according to Rav Yossi, you're allowed to do davar of it without any shinui. When you have heter of a davar of it, in these cases will be davar of it. That these things, if the door is broken and the lock, so it's a davar of it. Is that the ganav might come in the chora. So then you'd be allowed to fix it even without a shinui, even though it makes a lot of noise. And Yochanan Kohen Gadol is not talking about. It's not like Rav Yossi, or he's not talking about davar of it. Whatever the case would have been, but this is a machlokes. Rav Yisrael Bavdimi man tana shinui b'moed davar of it. Rav Yossi. Rav Yisrael Bavdimi said any tana that says that you need a shinui, you need something to do it not the normal way, even by a thing which is a loss, davar of it, is going to be against Rav Yossi. It means Rav Yossi holds that a davar of it does not need a shinui, and therefore you don't have to hold back from using a hammer. If you need a hammer in order to fix a davar of it, you'd be allowed to. And that's what you're asking, I think, that you're like Rav Yossi, that a davar of it does not need a shinui. Ravina, command Madina Neidna Kavyusa the Dasha, B'chola the Moda, command Rav Yossi. I don't know the exact case over here. Maybe look at Rashi again, but he says, according to who do we have the custom to be madla kavyusa of the door? And madla means to pick up. Dasha is a door. Kavyusa, we'll see in a second. So come on, kavyusa. That you're allowed to do it. You're allowed to do kavyusa. You're allowed to do it even though it makes noise. Let's say. And where's the Rashi over here? first white line in Rashi, Kishiyosin Masmirim Shalitz Min HaKoresh Ala Pesach to show you the Mebad V'lo Shinoi. Something to the effect that there is some kind of a malacha to do when nails come out of the wood on top of the door. You're allowed to fix it. So I can't say I know exactly what the words of what the case is, but it seems to be some kind of a thing that's a davar of it. Maybe nails are protruding into the doorway and someone's going to pass by. That's a davar of it. They'll get a torn suit, whatever it might be. It might get a nezek. So you're allowed to fix it, and even without any shinoi. So according to Yossi, you'd be allowed to. You're allowed to. So the less Gemara seems to say that even though Yochanan Kohen Gadol made a takana not to use a hammer, we pass like Rav Yossi that a davar does not need a shinoi, and even if it needs a hammer and noise, you're allowed to do that also. So we're saying that there's no heter to use. Tzarech HaMoed has a limitation. Tzarech HaMoed, if it's a nice head, but it's not a davar of it, maybe over there you're not allowed to. But when it's a davar of it, so then there's no limitation of shinoi, and you're allowed to do it the regular way, even if it makes noise.
Little kashi, because you can even take a ham and open up a coconut on Shabbos, which is more.
I think when you open up the coconut, they're not going to be hearing the banging like it sounds like you're building. It's not going to be the banging of, you're not going to hear the banging that you hear when you're fixing a door. So that's probably Yochanan Kohen Gadol had, but the Rebbe holds when it's a davar of it, you don't need a shinoi. The next Mishnah said about pickles. If you're gonna make the pickles and it's gonna be ready to eat on Chol HaMoed, then it's mutter. If not, you're not. Even though you want to make pickles for after the moed, you're not allowed to. You only can do that malacha, making pickles, only pickling things, not after pickles, any kind of pickling things, pickling fish, whatever it might be, meat. So only if it's going to be ready to eat on Chol HaMoed. But if not, then you're not allowed to. The next couple of words are difficult, and the words how to read it, but the idea, the Mephoshim say what the idea was, Bedisa Lavoy Kivri, whatever that means. Something about the kavri is fish. And Bedisa, they say, is Pumbadisa, it's a river, and there was a river, and the word Lavoy, I don't know, the Mephoshim have difficulty with it, but the idea is going to be that there was a river that brought fish, and it dried, whatever the water dried up, whatever there was fish. There's a big mitzvah that you can get fish for free. They're well trapped already. You just go and pick up the fish. So everyone went to get the fish. Also Koliyalma, Sadu, and Cholamoy. Sad Aisu, Kavra. And everyone went and they got the fish. Easy catch. Sharalu Rava Lamim Lach Minayu. And Rava permitted them to preserve them by salting them. And the question is that they're taking, it's not going to be usable for Chol HaMoed. Our Mishnah said that you're only allowed to salt if it's going to be ready for Chol HaMoed, but they were salting it in a way that it's not going to be usable for Chol HaMoed. Only if you're going to be able to eat it. It seems that they took more. They might have taken more than they'd be able to eat, and they had to salt them. And he said, "You're allowed to salt it. How are you allowed to salt it? You're not going to be eating them Chol HaMoed." Just originally when they went to get it to eat. It means they didn't get a whole bunch. They didn't go, this is the biggest damnut. You can get fish for free, and they took 10 fish. They only took as much as they needed. That's it's gonna be ruined. It's gonna go in the garbage. So that's called davar. Once you have it, you did it a good purpose. You went to get fish that you could eat, and then you have leftover. And if you're not gonna put it in salt, it's gonna get spoiled. So then it's davar, but it didn't mutter. But you wouldn't be allowed to take more than you wouldn't be able to take. You can't take it and prepare it for later. Only if you have leftover that you took because you wanted to eat it.
Sounds like mine.
Can you repeat that again? They took what they thought they would eat, but they didn't eat it all.
Right, and they had leftover, and now if they leave over the leftovers, it's going to get spoiled. Then there's heter of davar of it. Then you're allowed to. Then that heter is not because you're going to use it. Heter is because it's going to be a financial loss. I have these fish. I have 2 extra fish that I can't eat, and I thought I'm going to eat.
Yeah, okay. Isn't that kind of dangerous? Because if somebody will say, yeah, I think I'm going to eat all these, knowing that maybe he's making a harama.
So at this point, it says you're not allowed to, and we'll tell everybody, just take what you need. That's what it seems. It seems according to the first teretz, you're not allowed to take more than you need, and just took what he took what he did need, but he not with tzimtzum, it doesn't take mamish a little, and he had extra, then you're allowed to salt the extra. That's what the first teretz seems to say. Ikadami, we have 2 teretzim over here. That's going to be two highlights over here. The first one was the first teretz. They took it for eating, and that leftover, then it's davar of it if it's going to get spoiled. Ikadami, others have a different version in the story. Not that Rava said after they brought it home to eat, then he said you could salt it. Showing the Rava Meza Isuye Umimla, that Rava permitted them to go get and trap them, get them, and salt it. It means like it seems like Lachatchila didn't just get it to eat. They went to Lachatchila to get more than they're going to eat. Amalei Abaya, according to this version, he asked, Amish says it's only mutter if you're going to be able to eat it. and now you're taking with those that you're not going to eat.
That's
Amalei,
Abaya's question.
yes. Amalei, hani nami misachli agav itzasa. These two are also edible. The word itzasa, Rashi seems to say squeezing, you squeeze out the salt or you wash it. Rashi says you can wash off the salt. So it comes that there's a difficulty in this Gemara. The Gemara's Lachor is talking about that they took more than they're going to eat.
Right.
And the Gemara answers that it's edible. It'll be edible because you can take off the salt. You must say Lachor. That's the question. That's the question. How could you take? That's the difficulty in our Gemara. The first Torah seems to say the only matter then they took for eating, and then that left over that's going to get spoiled. That's mutter. That's okay. That first Torah would be simple. But the second Torah seems to say that he even permitted them to get more than they need, and the question the Gemara is only dealing with is that it's so salty that you can't eat it. So that he told them you could wash it off and you could eat it also. It means usually when you preserve things, so then that's time people leave it as is, but right away it's not going to be edible, whatever it might be. And he said, as far as that goes, it's not a problem because you could wash it many times to get the salt off. But the question is, but you took more. You took the kamut, the quantity is too much more. That's a kasha that the Meforshim has. So there's a hybrid now. There's a test of the Mishnah Berurah and the Chazon Ish that Mishnah Berurah says that by fish is a little different because each fish might be better. When you're going fish, taking the fish, you don't know which one is going to be the good one. So you'd be allowed to continue taking another fish, fishing for more and more. Maybe I'll get a good catch. It doesn't look like Rashi pointed out. It doesn't look like they just had all the fish on the floor and the water dried up and you see a bunch of fish. Take the one that you want. It seems like they did have to fish, but it was an easy catch that was full of fish, and you just take another one, and there you're allowed to take more than you think you're going to eat because you don't know. Maybe I'll catch a good one. At the end, you only have the one that you're going to eat, and the rest of them is now going to be mutter davar of it, similar to what the first Torah said. But the kasha was that it's not edible. How could I eat it today? And the answer is you could eat it today because you could wash it many times to get off the salt. I'm not sure if that's so clear. The Chazon Ish, he says that the Gemara doesn't mean that. The Gemara doesn't mean that you take many more. You only take what you need to eat. The Gemara is just talking about that the problem was that he's putting it into salt and you're not going to be able to eat it today anything. So that the Gemara says it's possible to wash it off, that you will be able to eat it on Chol HaMoed. So the Mishnah Berurah says you're allowed to take more fish. If you're going fishing, you're allowed to try to get another catch because maybe the next one will be a better one. But Chazon Ish doesn't.
So the salt on the fish is because somebody salted it. Isn't that why the salt is there?
Right. Now the question is it edible? Is it usable? Is it usable today? So the Gemara says it is edible by washing it off many times.
And therefore, since it's fit to be eaten today, it makes it mutter.
Right. That's what the Gemara seems to say. And then the Gemara brings a couple of stories about having salted things that if you wash it many times, it's able to eat it. Rashi says that Shmuel, they had something very salty and they washed it many times, 60 times, that's an exaggeration, and he was able to eat it. Another case, the same thing, that they had something salted and they washed it many times in order that he should be able to eat it. The Gemara says a couple of stories now. It doesn't seem halachic stories anymore, but let's see. Rav Shvir, either say his name was Rav Shvir, or they changed the gears of Bar Shvir, or somebody. Rav came someplace. I saw the Kamayu Ahu Kavra, Tilsa Bishula, Tilsa Milcha, Tilsa Tav. They brought him a fish that was a third cooked, a third salted, and a third roasted. So that sounds like a fancy dish. And it doesn't, I don't think it means 3/3 of the fish, the head and the tail and the middle. It means that they cooked it a third of how much you usually would cook it. And they also salted it a third of how much it would usually be salted. And it was cooked, roasted a third. Maybe it also means the first part that I negated, that maybe it means that 3 different thirds of the fish. I don't know. But anyway, the Rashi says the point all the Gemara wants is still some milcha. When it says that it was a third salted, that's the point that it was salted very much, and it was called a moed, and I was able to eat it, only able to eat it because it was washed many times. It's not so clear. The rest of the Gemara is just going to talk about fish. Doesn't seem to be enough about chayil chol moed. So a little difficult, but this Gemara came in because it says that even fish which could not be eaten because it's saltiness, it is possible with certain methods of washing it that you would be able to eat it. It's still called roy lachin. The Gemara ends off with interesting things about fish. Amar Rav. The rest of the Gemara is going to be stories about fish. Amar Rav. Amali Adad Saida. Adad Saida is the fisherman. So Adad the fisherman told Rav all kinds of things about fish. Kavra, mali. Fish is good when it's close to getting spoiled. It means a fresh fish is not as good as a fish which is going off. Not that it's off already. Once it's off, but it's going off. That's when it's best. Taisus has difficulty with this. Taisus says that that's not so. Taisus says this one of these Taisus that says nishtanu at voim. a famous Tosfos that says that things have changed. Shem and Ishtanu, Kamar Refuah Shebashas, Shein Tovas B'Zman Hazeh. That Tosfos says that the remedies they find in the Gemara, they don't work nowadays. So he says that things changed. Or he says maybe the Metzius is different, maybe the rivers of bubble is different, or maybe the fish is not any kind of a fish, it's a certain kind of a fish. Okay, Rabbi Hanan also says that, just to point out, Rabbi Hanan also says that these things are not always at the same times. He says here, what's such Rabbi Hanan? Here he says here that the doctors say, whatever, they're coming up in the next Gemara, that he says the doctors of those times and those places, most are Ace, most are Makom. So these things that the Gemara talks about hell, sometimes the Mefarshim said that we don't see it working anymore. So not to take it. Like what? Yeah, these kind of things that are changing. Some of them is next to it's getting spoiled is when it's good. Means it's the fish is good for eating. It's good for eating before it gets spoiled. Well, of course, not that it's spoiled, but it says it's better not a fresh fish. Wait until it's almost spoiled and then it's good.
And we don't hold that way. We always look for the freshest fish. I mean,
okay, so you like Tosfos. Tosfos says that these things don't apply nowadays. Rav says more things than other the fishermen told him. Kavra, Tavye Bahua, Asuke Bahua, Nechle Grey, Ishti Aleavua. So he's saying a riddle, and he considers the water the father, and it has two sons. One son is the fish. The fish grows in the water. So the father is the water is the father, and the fish is the son. Also, you get salt out of the water. So the water has two sons. It has salt and fish. So it's going to call the fish and the salt is going to call brothers, and it's going to call the water is calls the father. So he says, the fisherman told me, Kavra Tavye Bachua, fish roasted with his brother, means roasted together with salt. Asuke Bavua, and then put it in, then put it into its father, which means wash it off with cold water. And then Mechle Begrei, eat it together with its son. The son of the fish. Who's the son of the fish? The son of the fish is the bride. What?
The salt they said was the other brother.
That's the brother. That's the son. That's the son of the water. The water has two sons. Now there's another son. The fish also has a son. The water has a son, salt, and it has a son, fish. And the fish has a son, brine. The brine is the son of the fish. So eat it together with its son. Again, this fish has a father, a brother, and a son. So roast it with his brother, and then wash it off with his father, and eat it with its son. And then ishti aleavua, and then also drink its father on it. Then they take water, drink water after the fish. After you eat fish, it's good to drink water. And also the Mefarshim say maybe it's not so anymore. Another thing Rav said from other the fishermen. Yes, please.
My old the whole health food days, they used to say after fish you need to drink a lot of water because of the egg. Nothing to do with Talmud.
Okay. And now another thing that other the fishermen said, Kavra, Tachli, Bechelba, Lutan Gufa, Volo, Lutan Pori. After you ate fish, or you ate Tachli, it's a shachlaim, press, or you drank milk, so do exercise and don't go to sleep. Lutan Gufa, that he should get his body moving, but he shouldn't go onto the bed. Don't go to sleep. After fish and after cress, CRESS, and after milk. Get your body moving. What? Milk.
They tell you
that after you eat a meal, you should
don't go to sleep.
Cress is kind of a green. It's like a green.
I think so. Cress, I think they translated as. I think. Yeah, listen. Gufi Rashi says, after you have these things, so walk a lot before you go to sleep. Don't sleep right away. And the last thing, after you have these three foods, again, the same three. Fish, shachlayim, cress, I think they say, and milk. So drink water afterwards. Better than beer, and beer is better than wine. Means wine is the worst. After these things, don't take wine. If anything, take beer. But the best is to take water.
Before sleeping.
No.
After eating. These things. Oh, the same three things.
Oh, thank you, Lady Yaakov. Beautiful. Cress. Tachli is shachlayim, and that's cress. Anybody know where you buy it?
Yeah, where do you get cress?
Okay, Lady Yaakov, for the Siyum, you bring it. For the Siyum, I want.
No, you can. Most health food stores have it. What's it called?
Okay, so to just review what we had about making a fence. So it says my said it is mutter, and of course the Rabbi will say that it will be mutter my one also, but according to the rules, but it doesn't say that. Then it talks about even though it looks beautiful result, but don't use any kind of tools, not even a trowel. And then these things, that's the over of it. It says that you're allowed to fix them. And even if it was broken before Yantiv, as long as you didn't plan dafka to fix it on the moed, the davar of it is mutter on chol moed. The Gemara is an issue about using a hammer, and the maskana seems to be like Rabbi Yossi holds you don't need a shini. We'll see right away in the next Mishnah. When it says davar, but you don't need a shini, even allowed to make noise with a hammer. And
I do, excuse me, I do have a bunch of pictures here. Should I show them now while you do the sikkim?
Just for 1 more minute.
Okay.
And then it talks about the question. So that the Gemara says that a story about people that went to get a fish that came up big as the and they were able to get fish, and then they salted it. And the question was, you're not allowed to salt it, it's not going to be edible during the moed. The first Torah said that was considered davar of it because they got it for eating, and the leftover is going to get spoiled, and that's why it's mutter. And the second Torah seemed to say that it is edible, and the Chazon will say only if you didn't take, don't take more than you need. And the salting alone is not a problem because you would be able to wash it many times in order to be able to eat it. Just to point out one thing that I don't know fits with the Gemara so well, but the poskim say in the Meshulchan Aruch it says that even though we only say only davar of it is mutter, but just profit is usher. Only if it's a loss is it permissible by other things. But over there they say that if there's some once in a lifetime opportunity, some big opportunity that's going to be a big deal, a great bargain that you or they're able to sell it for a great price. So then it is permissible. They don't get it from our Gemara, they get it from the Yerushalmi, and I don't know how it fits with our Gemara exactly because here it seems that this fish was a big mitzvah, that they got a lot of fish for free, that they could easily catch them. It seems like that's not enough to matter whatever that heter was, but there was some kind of heter that says that if there's a big opportunity, it is permissible even though it's not considered a loss, it's just a lack of a gain. But if it's a big opportunity, then it is permissible. I don't know the applications without halacha, but it's just good to know.
And preserve it.
No, what I said now is something else. There's something else with that. Yelev Yaakov, go ahead.
So first of all, we have this one is the hammer.
Okay, a blacksmith's hammer. And some kind of a rolling pin that's used to fix a roof.
Oh, there's the roof there.
And there's a trowel over here.
Trowel is less.
But according to what we learned, you're not allowed to use a trowel either. It should be a big X over here also. Only by hands.
And so what is this? This, I don't know what this is exactly.
I don't either.
Thank you, like
That's his foot. So it must have been his hand before. You're allowed to do with your hands and your feet. That you're allowed to do, but you're not allowed to use any. You can't use any tools.
This, maybe that's a fence to behead you, I guess.
Yeah, only
Micah.
palm branches to make the fence.
Okay, and then did we have this Gemara today? I don't know what this is about.
Yeah. This is the tzino. They have. If you look on the door, you see two hinges, one going up, one going down, and it fits into something. That's the big inset over there. It's showing the picture of how the hinge. The hinge means that peg coming out. That's called the hinge, and it goes into the floor. That's called.
There's a male and female there. Male and female.
Right. Yeah.
Good. Looks like a Robert
You also have here the lock, and you have the lock. Yeah, all that is muscle. Very good. Okay. Anything else? That's it. Okay.
No, I think that's it.
Rashi says it means to wash it off a lot of times until you're able to get. That's what Rashi says. Sometimes the word itzitza means this to press, to squeeze, but Rashi says it means washing. I don't know how he says that. Okay, the next mission is a new parak, second parak. Mishafach. Mishafach is Esav, somebody that turned over his olive. So in the process of making olive oil, so they keep it in some kind of a bin, and then they start turning it upside down and ready to get it prepared for the pressing. And once you do that, it seems that it's going to be a loss if you don't do the process. I don't know the exact procedure, but the point would be that you started processing it, and now if you stop, it's going to be a loss. It's going to go spoiled. So the Mishnah talks about interesting cases. If you take out, let's say just for a second, to take out these words, Iro Evel, just to continue the Mishnah, someone had prepared his olives ready to press, and then something happened before the Yontif, and then something happened. An onus, whatever happened, they couldn't do it. something broke, whatever, it didn't work, whatever he couldn't do, onus, or he told him that he had ordered workers to come and do it, and they didn't come. They told them they were supposed to come and they didn't come, and now it comes the Yom Tov, and it's going to be a loss. If he's going to leave these olives that are not going to be processed, then it's going to be a loss. So it says in the Mishnah what you're allowed to do. But there's a word here that says Iro Eva, that it became an Avel. So there's going to be an issue. What is the Mishnah saying? It seems that when we know Allah on Avel is not allowed to do work. During Shiva, the Avel is not allowed to work. So that would be also an application. That's like we talk about the moed. On Chol Moed, you're not allowed to do work, and Avel is also not allowed to do work. Two halachas. An Avel can't do work, and a moed cannot do work. So the Mishnah seems to throw in the case of an Avel also. The simple meaning of the Mishnah, if you read Mishnayos, I would say that the reason that he couldn't get the olives ready and press them before the moed is because he became an Avel. He had, let's say, a week before the moed, he was ready to do the olive oil, and he started. And then he became an Avel. So the 7 days out, he wasn't able to do that. And then when it came to moed, he wants to know, now can I do it? Adav Abed, he couldn't have done it by the Avelis, but now by the moed, maybe he could. And that's going to be a possibility in the Gemara. There's going to be such a Mandi Amar that Davar Ovid is also for an Ovid. That's going to be the whole sugya today. The rest of the sugya today is going to be nothing to do with Chol Moed. We're going to go into Hilchos Avelos. Is an Ovel who's not allowed to do Malacha during Shiva? What if it's Davar Ovid? Is he allowed to? So if you read the Mishnah plain, it would seem like that's what it's saying, that someone had turned up over his olives ready to process, but then something happened that stopped him. He became an Ovel, or a different owners, or the workers didn't come. And now it's Chol Moed, then he has the loss of the olives. The question is, what do you do now? So everybody knows that you're allowed to save the loss, but the Yehuda says you have to save the loss, whatever minimum way of saving it, but whatever, you don't have to wait till after the moed. So he says, Toin Kor Rishon means you can put the first beam on one time. That's the main press. That's enough to stop it from being spoiled, and the rest of it you could come after the moed. It's not a double of it anymore. It means save the day, save the loss, but after that you can't do more. Rabbi Yossi says, since it's a double of it, so you can do every business as regular, whatever would be normal. Solif would mean that you bring out all of the oil and you finish and you package it, you put it into the barrels, close the barrels, whatever. Since it's a double of it, you're allowed to do the business as usual.
So it means you pour?
You bring the oil all about, but it must be pouring. You get all of the oil out of the olives. You don't just put the first beam on. You do everything you need. So this has to point out. This is the Rabbi Yossi we mentioned a couple of minutes ago. He said by the banking over there. We said the Rabbi Yossi holds that a double of it doesn't need a shino. This is it. Right? Where was that? Rabbi Yossi. Whoever says you need a shino is not the Rabbi Yossi. Who's that? Rashi says that's our Rabbi Yossi. Where's Rashi over here? Here it is. The Rabbi Yossi, the Pirkei will come on. That's going to be the next page. The Rabbi Yossi, Laboy Lishli, Davar Ovid. Okay, so then
so he's consistent with his own opinion. He's always.
Rabbi Yossi knows that the Davar Ovid does not need a shino.
So Gaf means to put it into bottles, into caskets?
I think Gaf means to seal it, to do the sealing. Okay, so what do we have? So really, we learned, if you forget about Avelos for a second, so it's a machlokes by a Davar Ovid on Chol Moed. Do you still have to do the minimum in order to save the Davar Ovid, or you could do business, you could do regular in order to whatever you usually would do? Rabbi Yehuda holds you have to do the minimum and leave the rest for after the Moed. Rabbi Yossi says you could do whatever's normal. But it comes in, since the example was Avelos over here. So the question is, does the Mishnah say that you're not allowed to do, a novel is not allowed to do work even though it's Davar Ovid? That's what the Gemara starts. Pasach v'Ovel v'sim b'moed. The Mishnah starts talking about the din of an Ovel, and it ends off about a moed. And it could be that you read the Mishnah differently, and it says that Mishafach Hasesav and an Avelos happened. What does he do now? Maybe the Mishnah is also telling you what would be the case. And the Mishnah is asking, what does Ovel do? Maybe it says over there also he's allowed to do it. That'll be two choices in the Gemara. We read the Mishnah in a way that it's saying that Ovel is not allowed to do Davar Ovid, but you could read the Mishnah if someone, besides telling you Lachas of Chol Moed, also talks about the Lachas of Avelos, that if somebody has a Davar Ovid and Avelos, he is allowed to do Malacha. So that's the question how to read the Mishnah. First of all, it changes the subject in the middle. It's first talks about what does the Ovel do, and then it says what does the Moed do. The first Mandiyama says that it's saying that the Ovel is not allowed to do Malacha. And therefore, I say, Rashi says a little different than I'm saying, but I think that there's a simple way to read the Mishnah according to this, that if he had prepared the olives and he's in the middle of the process and it became an Ovel, and he can't do anything then, and then the Moed come, then he could do it. That means that Ovel is also to do the Davar Ovid, and Moed is mutter to do the Davar Ovid. That's the what?
Does it say what? Who's Moed?
There's Moed, there's Ovel and there's Moed. There's Avelos and there's Moed. Is Ovel allowed to do Davar Ovid? So the Shisha Beit Avidi says no, he's not allowed to. And the way we read the Mishnah is that if, I think this I'm saying, that if he had his olives ready and he's in the process and now he became an Avel, and then afterward is a moed, so the Avel is not allowed to. Is not allowed to do anything, even though it's going to be the upper of it, but he could push it off till the moed, and the moed, and the moed, he is allowed to do it. Davar Avel is asur on Avel, mutter by moed. There are other ways to read it more exactly, but that's the point. The first sheet holds that Avel is asur and Davar Avel. Only moed is mutter.
The moed overrides his aved. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that
Nothing to do with each other. No, he's not. No.
no? Because he's going to do the work on the moed,
The Avel was before the moed. He was Avel before the moed.
right?
And he had a Davar Avel. Is the mutter to do something on the is a Avel allowed to do malacha by a Davar Avel? You know, Avel's not allowed to do malacha. For 7 days, he's not allowed to do malacha. Why not? It's a Davar Avel. In the middle of Siva, nothing to do with the moed. Is Avel allowed to do malacha? No. Davar Avel? That's the question. That's the sugya. So now the Gemara is saying the first sheet tells that Avel is not allowed to do malacha on Davar Avel. On the moed, he is allowed to do. That's the Mishnah. Rabashi holds that Avel is mutter to do malacha for Davar Avel. And Lami Boya, we may have lo dem Rabbanan hu v'shari ala fidu b'moed. This is malacha daraisa. Malcolm say the shor Rabbanan, and it means Lami Boya. Not only is it mutter by Avel, it's mutter Davar Avel, even in moed. And the Gemara says here that malacha for Avel is only Issa Rabbanan, and malacha in Chol HaMoed is Issa daraisa, which is not so simple. We had in the beginning of the Masechta we talked about is this malacha in Chol HaMoed daraisa Rabbanan. Here the Gemara seems to say it's Rabbanan. Here the Gemara seems to say it's daraisa. Even if you hold this daraisa, the way the Rishonim say is Hakasav Masur LaChachamim. The Chachamim are going to decide what's mutter, what's asa, but it's Issa daraisa. Here the Gemara says Malach and Chol HaMoed is Issa daraisa, and Rav Ashi says the Mishnah is saying Enechanami that it's saying that a Avel is allowed to do malacha for Davar Aved, and a moed is allowed to do malacha for Chol HaMoed for Davar Aved. And how you read it into the Mishnah, that'll be a question. How you fit it into the Mishnah, but that's the machlokes. Is a Avel mutter to do malacha? Everybody holds that a moed is mutter. Machlokes in the Mishnah, if he has to do the minimum, or he could do whatever's normal. And we pass like a Yossi, he could do whatever's normal. But is there heter of Davar Avel on by a Avel? Rav Shisha Beit Avidi says no. Rav Ashi says yes. Tani Kavase, the Rav Shisha Beit Avidi. We're going to bring a verse that says that it's not allowed to do malacha. That there's no heter of Davar Avel for an Avel. That's why we pass it. That a Avel is not allowed to do malacha, even if it's a Davar Avel. I think it's how we pass it. And what's the Rashi going to say? He's going to say things of a Davar Avel by a Avel. And it's going to say that other people are allowed to do for him the work, which means that usually not only can Davar not do the work, people can't do work for him either. If it's a Davar Avel, will allow other people to do the work for him, but he can't do it himself, even though it's a Davar Avel. What does it say? It doesn't say these are the things that Avel is allowed to do. It says these are the things that we do for the Avel. That means that we help him out because he has a Davar Avel, we're going to help him out. But he himself is not allowed to do the actual work, even though it's Davar Avel.
This is by Rabbi Yehuda, or it's also Rabbi Yossi?
We're not talking. We're into Avelus now. We're into Avelus. We're not talking about Chol HaMoed now. The whole sugya today is going to be Avelus. The machlokes of Rabbi Yossi, like you say, is by moed. You have to do the minimum, or he could do normal. But that's only by Chol HaMoed. Now we're talking about Avelus, and we're coming now to say that there's no heter of Davar Avel by Avelus. At most, we're just going to allow other people to do malacha for the Avel to save him the loss. But he himself cannot do malacha, even though he's going to have a loss. Make sense? It's good. The Avel, the Gemara comes out like a Shisha Beit Avidi that there's no heter for the Avel to do malacha, even though it's Davar Avel. But you're talking about the Beis Avidi, that's by Chol HaMoed. That's machlokes if he's allowed to just save the loss, the minimum, or he could do normal. If that's like a Yossi, he could do the normal. But that's Chol HaMoed. Here we're talking about Avel, and the Rice is saying that he's not allowed to do malacha, even for Davar Avel. At most, other people can do it for him.
It's very interesting. Because last week, Chavis came to the meat store. He was lifting. Right. And the son runs the store, the son's store, but they closed the store for the week. And I was wondering, why did they close the store? They have workers there.
The answer is because it's their store.
Their store.
Therefore,
So they have to close.
They closed.
even
Avel
though
store has to be closed.
They could have, the workers couldn't.
Sometimes the Davar, let's say the
Now you can talk about what's Davar Avel. What if it would be that the meat is going to get spoiled, whatever meat they have, not to order more meat.
Right.
Or what if meat have is Davar Avel? So then we can talk about it. Maybe put it into the freezer. Maybe nowadays not called a loss. They put it into the freezer. But if it would be spoiled, things that are going to get spoiled, that'll be the sugi here.
Right. But I know that they close the news sign.
For sure, there's good freezers and they don't have a
no,
problem.
but sometimes
Sorry, Rebbe, are they able to sell it
That's not what the Rav is saying.
That
Selling,
could be a.
to sell it,
Sometimes.
selling also will be part of the things that Abel's not allowed to do. So if it be over, then it might be, you have to, somebody else to sell it for him. The selling is also part of the malacha that Abel is not allowed to do. He's not allowed to do business.
I
think.
vaguely remember. I think Ami Magazine, the owner of Ami Magazine, father and mother was nifter, and I think it was some they wrote about it in the magazine, but I think they sold it for the week. Or I forgot what they did exactly. How they continued to produce it. They did something.
I didn't understand what you said. You mean to say they sell the whole business, not that they sold, someone sold the meat for them. I didn't understand what you were saying. I want to say there's a loophole that if they sell the whole business, that's probably like a loophole kind of a thing. Okay.
Over there could be also different because people order, let's say, for the year the magazine, so they have a chiv to get the magazine for the year.
Okay.
Just bring it out.
This is the daf with These are the things that other people are allowed to do to help out the Ovel when he has a loss. So here's Dover of it, and it says he's not allowed to do, but other people are allowed to do for him. It sounds like if it's not Dover of it, then wouldn't be allowed to do for him either. Just if it's a Dover of it, then people are allowed to do for him. And it gives examples. Say Savapuchin, Toan is our Mishnah, that he has already, the olives have already been turned over, whatever they mix the olives, and now it's going to be lost if they leave it like that without pressing it.
Right.
So people are allowed to do people are allowed to put the beam on in order to press it. Next case, Kadol Guf. If he has his barrels that are supposed to be sealed, and it's going to be a loss if he doesn't, so they're allowed to do it for him. Pishtan olalas min mishra. If he has pishtan flax that's been soaking, that's part of the process. And if he leaves it over there, it's going to spoil. You have to take it out of the soaking bath. So that's also the case. People are allowed to do it for him. He can't do it himself. Simul olalas min ayora. He has wool that's been in the vat, the dyeing vat, in order to get color dye. So he's not allowed to. If they leave it there, it's going to be a loss. People are allowed to take out the summer. He can't do it himself. And also, when it's his turn to get the water, he's allowed to. They had whatever. It seems that they had a different rotation of who gets the water. When it comes his turn to get the water, and he's not going to be able to water his field as davar aved, people could water it for him. But again, all these things it says. Case of davar aved. That means to water his field. We had it earlier. We said over there means like a light rate of watering. But the point is that all these things are davar aved, that he still can't do it. Only people can do it for him. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Avzaron says, stay near, if he has a field that has to be planted and he's an oval and he can't do it, so people can do it for him. And also, it's a field which is designated to plant pishtan, and if the season is going to pass by, the week's going to pass by, it's not going to be roy. I guess it's a very delicate plant that has to be dafka at that time. So also, people are allowed to do it for him because it's a loss. But the Chacham argue on these last two things. That's not considered davar aved because even though he's not going to be planting early, the stay is a field which has been plowed, but it's no problem. We can do it a little bit later. It's not going to be a loss, and even though it's going to be not a good crop, not as good a crop, it's also not called a loss. And also the pishtan, even though he's not going to be able to use it to plant pishtan because the season is going to be over in a week, but he still could plant something else. That's not considered davar aved. That's the side point. Our main point is to say that a davar aved, the Brisa says the aved can't do it himself. Only other people can do it for him. A side issue came up: is this considered davar aved? One more heter over here in the Brisa talks about but Simra Gamliel Lalas Min Yora, he has another heter for a davar aved that even though we said other people should do it for him, but if nobody else knows how to do it, he's the only one who knows how to do it. He has all these davar aved cases. He has the olives ready to go, and he has the pishtan and whatever, the cod that has to be sealed, and nobody else knows how to do it. He's the only one who knows how to do it. If you don't allow him to do it, it's going to be a loss. So he says that he could do it, bitzina. That if nobody see, if it's not open, and then it's mutter. So even though we said that a davar aved is usher for an ovel, only other people can do it for him. Machlokes Tanoim, B'Shimon Gamliel and Tanakama. If he has mamish a davar aved, nobody can do it for him. So then maybe we'll matter him if it's not publicized. So we finished more or less. I think we finished the pshat in the Mishnah that we're saying that the Mishnah is saying that Avil is not a reason to be matir davar aved, only moed. But now we're going on to the sugi more to say more halachas about hilchos avelos if there's a haterim for him to do malacha. So in the first line, he's the only one who knows how to do it. He's the only professional who knows how to do this business. So you can't say other people should do it. Other people can't do it. There's nobody else to do it for him. Then machlokas, is he allowed to do it with sin or not?
Will you be
able
he's the only one able to do it?
I'm sorry?
If he's the only one able to do, would he be able to do it for somebody else?
Right.
It would be somebody else's work.
No, to do, is he allowed to do work for somebody? He's an Ovel, and he's the only one available to do it. Could he allow somebody else? I would think not. It's only a
That's
heter
if
for
it's a
himself.
rabbin.
One person, that's in, but not somebody else, not a Robin. There's somebody else, his neighbor. His neighbor's an Ovel. Is he allowed to do it? I would think not. I would think not. Only his double of it. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't say for sure. I would have thought. The Mishnah.
Between the first 3 days.
No. Hilchos Avelos is also all the 7 days. You do find there's crying, but I don't know if there's, as far as this, I don't think that there's a difference. Yes, I'll get Rav Shimon Gamliel, another chiddush that Rav Shimon Gamliel said, the Sapo, he was a public worker. He's the doctor, or whatever, Uman, or the bloodletter, or he's the barber, or he's the bath attendant, and the people need him, not because of himself, nothing to do with of it. That there's a public service that he does, and nobody's available to do it. He's a barber. It's like Higil Eser Regel. It's Erev Yom Tov. Everyone needs.
No? Balan is a mikvah man.
Balan is a bath attendant. It could be a
call our
merchant.
local mikvah man a balan.
Okay, but it could be a merchant. It's not mikvah. So, and the case is, and it's the regel. Everyone needs a haircut. Everyone needs a bath. Everyone needs whatever the woman would be. So, is that a heter? He's the only one available. It sounds here only because Sochi Rabin. Dr. Fine, here it says that if he's the Obel and other people need him, it sounds like the heter only would be if it's a Tzarchi Rabin, not because of Dover Obed of the neighbor. That's what it sounds like. But anyway, it says that is it permissible? Rav Shimon Gamliel says that Tzarchi Rabin is also heter for the Obel to do work. I don't know if you pass like that again because it seems to be only Rav Shimon Gamliel. Yes, okay, no, Rav Shimon Gamliel could be. It sounds like from the superscript over here that maybe we will pass like him, but it could be a machlokas rishonim about this. The next case. Recent v'achakirin v'akablonim harei elu yasu. These two words, acherim b'shvilan, they take out these two words. They say it says acherim b'shvilan. I'll try to these two words over here. It's not letting me. Okay, these two words. Acherim b'shvilan, they take out these two words. Recent v'achakirin v'akablonim harei elu yasu.
What are they?
So it means the way the Mefarshim explained, at least some Mefarshim, that it means not the Ovel himself. These people, the Ovel has workers. The Ovel has workers. They are oris, they're a sharecropper, or they're a kablan. Akir also means a kind of a sharecropper, but not that he pays money, but he pays a certain percentage or a certain amount for not a percentage. He said a certain set amount. But the point is that the workers in his fields are not available, but he's an Ovel. So I said, they could work, they could continue working. Somebody has a field, and people are working on the field, not for him. They have their own interests. So they're allowed to work because he's not working, even though it's his field. Next case is Achamorin, Agamorin, Asaponim. So here they learn that it means he owns a truck, all of that in modern application. Achamor, Gamol, Sapon, these are the donkey and the camel and the ship and so he's not allowed to have his trucks rented out. Is that the way to say it? That's what it sounds like. That he's not allowed to have his business going when he's an Ovel. But if it's already rented out before. Sorry, I have to get back on again.
Okay. I think you were up to if he was hired out for 1 day.
Okay. Skir Yom, if the Ovel was hired out by the day, if the no, I'm sorry, not the Ovel was hired. If the Ovel had a hired worker, the Ovel is not allowed to have a hired worker. He has to tell the worker, you don't work today because I'm an Ovel. So
I thought this was going on that he had a donkey and he was going to hire it out the donkey for the day. It's
that
not
was
going on the same case.
No, I don't think so. Schir yom means a person, a human who's a worker.
You're pleased the camel driver and the
He's
donkey
not
driver?
allowed to do malach if he's an ovel, but if he has his camel rented out already, so then the one who rented it is allowed to use it.
How can it be not? Obviously, because he seems to, that's his parnasa. He's got to go on with his work. The one who rented it. I would think it's a sheep.
The owner of the truck is ovel. He has to stop. He has to go to somebody else to get a truck. So the luck is that since it's rented out already, so then he's allowed to continue using it. But he's not allowed to rent it out on the avelis or to be the driver. That he can't do.
I'm sorry, here is the Sichir Yom is the Avel himself. He's the one that hired himself out for the day.
I didn't think so. Let's see Rashi over here. Schir Yom Echad Va'afilu Bi'acheres Ve'en Yodin Sham Shu'ava V'Leka Mishum Marasayin. I thought that it means that, or maybe I'm wrong. I thought it means that he has a hired worker, but maybe you're right. Maybe the Rashi seems to say maybe that the Avel is the hired worker, so he's not allowed to do work, even if they don't know who he is over there. No Marasayin, I don't get it. Okay, Rashi seems to say like you. 1 second, I just would like to check something else here. I have a different Gemara with a different Pirush, the real Rashi. I wrote a different shot. Maybe Rashi says, like you said, that the Avel is the hired worker. I don't see much of a chiddush over there. The other Mepharshim seem to say that the Avel has a hired worker, and that hired worker is not allowed to do work, even in a different city than the Avel. Even though
That
he's not.
makes more sense.
I think I got it from the postscript, not like the Pirush that we have on the side, not like Rashi over here. So I think that's why we pass that the Schir Yom means that not that the Avel is the Schir Yom, but the Avel has hired workers, by day workers, so they're not allowed to do work for him, even if they're not in the same city. If the Avel has work that he's supposed to do, he's a hired worker, and he's supposed to do the work, and he became an Avel. He's not allowed to do the work, even if he has kibol. Kibol means like he got a contract for the job. There's kablonis and there's like a schir yom. So kablonis means that he got paid for the job. He doesn't get paid by the day. He gets paid by the time. He gets paid by the job. So it says even though he gets paid by the job, he's not allowed to do it. Which is more right away jumps up and says that doesn't make sense. Those are the words that even though he gets paid by the job. On the contrary. And he seemed to say from the words, even though it's paid by the job, he's not allowed to do it. And kal v'chomer what? If he's not paid by the job, he's paid by the day. On the contrary, the fact that it's paid by the job is more reason why it should be usher. Which is more spara that it should be usher and mutter. If the other is paid by the job, if he's paid by the job, it's nothing to do with the day. He'll get the job finished next week. That's the reason why it should be more usher. And the rated price says, even though it's kibolis, it's usher. It should have said, even though it's not kibolis, it's usher. Even though it's by the day, he's not allowed to work. And that's what the Gemara says. Mark fixes it up. So no difference if he gets paid by the job or he gets paid by the day. He's not allowed to work. The Avel who is a hired worker, he's not allowed to work in the days of his availability. The next
we
case.
see how halacha din the pi halacha is more important than civil. Or civil. Once you have a contract, that's the civil law says you have to carry out your contract. Here we see the Torah comes in and says, no, yes, this is true.
Okay. I'm not sure what you mean by civil. If you mean Choshen Mishpat.
But also that's accepted to the nations. It's all down the cup. Everybody holds that the person has to live by his contract.
Yes, but there's this thing called an onus. Same way if he goes to the hospital, so here he's an Avel. So the Avel is not supposed to do work. If he has work that someone else should be doing, means he hired somebody to do a work for him. And here there seems to be betolish that it's not the post say it's talking about something which is not ground, not land. He's not working on the field. He has some job he gave somebody to do. So those workers are not allowed to do work in the house of the Ovel, but they are allowed to do work in a different house. They're building something for him. They're building a closet. They're writing a book for him, whatever. In the old days, they had a scribe. So they gave something to the cleaners, whatever. So then they're allowed to do it, but they're not allowed to do it in his house. The Gemara brings a story over here. Yes, that's the end of the brisa. That was the story. Marion, Braid the Rabba, and Amar, Braid the Ravacha, Braid the Rabba, Evalu, Ahu Gamla, the two Rabba, the other. There were two people on Maroim that they had a shutfis. They had two cows that plowed together. So one person's name was Marion, the son of Ravin, and also the other one was Mar, Braid the Ravacha, Braid the Rabba. They had a pair of oxen. That was the shutfis. Each one had an ox, they worked together. Israel Bey Milsa Mar Breder Avacha Breder Rabba. And one of them, this one, Mar Breder, he became a novel. Israel Milsa, he became a novel. A bad thing happened to him, that means that he became a novel. And his animal's not allowed to work. So he took away his animal. Paske Gamle, he took away the Gamle seems to say that it means the connection, the pair. He took away his animal. My animal can't work on my Avelis. Ravashi was surprised. I've become a chacham like Mar Beid Rabba. There's such a thing. And he will say that he's worried about his own laws. He didn't care, which means that even though it's a loss for him, it doesn't mean that it's a davar ovid. A davar ovid is also awesome. But even if it wouldn't be, so he took away his animal from working because he's a noble, but it's causing a loss to somebody else. He doesn't care about the loss. Means the other ox can't work by itself. It only works a pair. So if he's going to take away his ox, the shutuf is going to lose. But just like it says that if his ox is hired out to somebody, it's more for that person to continue using it. So here, if it's a shutuf and the shutuf is going to lose out because he can't do work on only his ox, it should be permissible.
This is Ravashi's claim against
Mar Bray the
Rabba.
And the Gemara ends off.
Sorry,
the who savar Adam Chashuv Shani. He held that even though that's halacha, but Adam Chashuv has to be machmer more. He thought that he's mechuyev to be machmer more because he was a Talmud Chacham, a great person, bigger. So he thought that he has to be machmer. And the halacha is that even on somebody else's cheshbon, he wouldn't be allowed to do it. It'd be like a chil Hashem. People will learn from him. So that's what he thought. And it seems maybe that's what he passes like. I see over here the memo over here. I didn't look at it inside, but maybe we pass Adam Chashuv Shani that he's not allowed to let his animal do work, even
though there's a loss by
somebody else.
That's a big
okay.
finish.
So the main point of the Gemara, this daf, is to say that an ovel is not allowed to do malacha, even though it's davar. But even though we're going to see the subject, it's going to talk about that the moed is mutter, pas like a Yossi, and you don't even have to have a shinoi. But by an ovel, it is also even davar ovid. We did see a terim that other people are allowed to do work for him if it's a davar ovid. And Rav Shimon Gamliel says that if it's sinah, if nobody else can do besides him, then if it's sinah, it's mutter, and it's sarchi rabim is mutter. Also, Rav Shimon Gamliel says, and we also saw that people cannot do work, can do if they working in his field, but if not that they're already hired workers, a sharecropper, things like that, then they could do work in his field. They're doing it on their own cheshbon. The chamor and agamala masapanim, he's not he has the truck company, he's not allowed to do work for them, but if it's already rented out, then it says it is mutter. The list the more we just said now that maybe Adam Chashuv is not allowed to. And then a hired worker, if the double has hired workers about a day, they're not allowed to do work for him. And he is not allowed to do work, no difference if he's a hired worker or by the job, he's not allowed to work for anybody else. If people are doing work for him on the Tolush, things that is not karka, so then it says that it's not allowed to be done in his house, in the Oval's house, but it could be done in somebody else's house. And the last story we had about the fact that it's a shuttif, so it's considered rented out to somebody else, the other person needs it, and therefore it will be mutter, but maybe Adam Chashuv has to be machmir. Yashikar, thank you everybody, and we'll be back with Pirkei Avos in a couple of minutes.
So we ended the bottom of the page.
Till the end of the page, yeah.
But you know,
thank you.
Why are we talking about this? This is
the last two lines in the Gemara.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the reason why we got that picture.
Okay. We don't know which cow belonged to the mourner, but one of them did.
I thought they looked very different, so it would be easy to tell.
Okay. And as long as we're waiting, here's another picture of an olive press. So this is the lever. And I guess that's what you could put down. You could put the first for the lever for the first printing. Is that what it means? For the first pressing? Something like that. I'm not sure. There's another picture.
Thank you,
That
Libya,
should
very
come
nice.
through everybody.
Oh, also, if someone would let the rabbi know, the recording's still on.
Thank you,
Okay.
Thank you, Sean.